Dear young ladies, many today are dreaming of a husband from abroad, believing that across the seas lie endless wealth, luxury, and happiness. But sometimes, in chasing distant dreams, we ignore the real treasures standing right before us, good men with kind hearts who could build a true home with us. This is the story of Kachi, a beautiful, fashionable tailor who made choices based on dreams rather than wisdom. Her story is filled with lessons about love, life, and regret. If you are waiting for a man from overseas while rejecting good-hearted men around you, please, sit back and watch this video to the end. It may open your eyes and help you make wiser decisions for your future. It's said that, he who abandons gold at his feet for the silver in the clouds may end up with nothing at all. Once upon a time, in a lively and colorful place called Namedtown, there lived a young woman named Kachi. Kachi was no ordinary woman. She was the kind of beauty that made even the birds stop mid-flight and the river slow its rushing just to catch a glimpse of her. She had skin as fair and smooth as fresh cream, eyes that shone like polished amber, and lips so soft and pink they seemed like roses blooming at the break of dawn. Her long hair, always neatly styled, flowed like silk behind her when she walked, and she carried herself with a grace that turned every dusty street of Namedtown into a royal carpet. But it was not just her beauty that captured hearts, it was her personality. Kachi was a tailor, a master of her craft. She could take the simplest fabric and turn it into a work of art. Her fingers worked magic with thread and needle, sewing dreams into dresses and stitching joy into shirts. People said that when Kachi made you a gown, you didn't just wear clothes, you wore confidence, happiness, and a touch of heaven. She was fashionable too, always ahead of her time. Every day, Kachi wore dresses of her own design, elegant, colorful, and perfectly fitted. Little girls stared at her in awe, dreaming of growing up to be like her. Young men stumbled over their own feet just to get a second look. But Kachi was more than just looks and talent. She was witty, intelligent, and fiercely independent. She loved to laugh, to dance when nobody was watching, and to dream bigger dreams than Namedtown could hold. And oh, did she have dreams! While many girls in Namedtown wished for a handsome husband, a cozy home, and children running at their feet, Kachi wished for something different. She wanted an abroad husband. She wanted to live in a place where the air smelled of different seasons, where snowflakes kissed your face in winter, and where the lights of big cities sparkled like stars fallen from heaven. Her heart was tied not to Namedtown, but to distant shores she had only seen in magazines and heard about in old travelers' tales. Because of this, no matter how many fine young men came knocking, Kachi turned them all away, with a smile, with kindness, but with a firm heart. One bright Saturday morning, as the sun smiled warmly over Namedtown, the first suitor arrived. His name was Richard. Richard was from Greendale, a neighboring town famous for its farmers and musicians. He was a tall young man with broad shoulders, neat curly hair, and a friendly smile that could light up a whole street. Richard had heard about Kachi's beauty and talent through his cousin, and after much thought, he decided he would come and ask for her hand in marriage. Dressed in his finest navy blue jacket and polished shoes, Richard stood at the doorway of Kachi's little fashion shop, clutching a bouquet of red roses. Kachi looked up from her sewing machine as the bell above the door jingled. "Good afternoon," Richard said, his voice warm and full of hope. "Good afternoon," Kachi replied, smiling politely. "How may I help you?" Richard cleared his throat nervously and stepped closer. "My name is Richard. I have heard about you from afar, and today, I have come to ask for something greater than a shirt or a suit." Kachi raised an eyebrow playfully. "Oh, and what would that be?" "I have come to ask for your heart," Richard said, offering her the roses. The small shop grew silent for a moment, save for the gentle humming of the ceiling fan. Kachi chuckled softly, her laughter like the chiming of little bells. "Richard," she said kindly, accepting the roses but setting them carefully on her work table, "you are a good man. I can see it in your eyes. But I am waiting for something else." Richard looked confused. "Something else?" "Yes," Kachi said, standing up and dusting off her colorful skirt. "I wish to marry a man who lives abroad. I have dreams that reach beyond Nemedtown and even Greendale." Richard's face fell. "But I can make you happy here." "I do not doubt it," Kachi said, smiling sweetly. "But my heart belongs to a future far away from here." Richard sighed heavily. "At least, think about it." "I have thought about it already," Kachi said gently. "And I must be true to myself." Heartbroken but respectful, Richard nodded and left, his shoulders sagging with disappointment. Later that evening, Richard's elder sister, Helen, and his mother, Mrs. Evans, paid a visit to Kachi's home. Helen brought a basket full of fresh fruits, and Mrs. Evans wore her finest lace scarf. "Kachi, dear," Mrs. Evans said after they had settled in the parlor, "you are like a daughter to me already. Please, reconsider Richard." "Yes, Kachi," Helen chimed in, "my brother has never looked at another woman the way he looks at you. He will treat you like a queen." Kachi smiled kindly, offering them tea. "I am truly honored," she said. "But my mind is made up. I dream of distant lands, and I will wait for the one who comes from there." Mrs. Evans dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Helen sighed heavily. But no amount of pleading could change Kachi's mind. The next morning, Helen and Mrs. Evans returned to Greendale, saddened but respectful of Kachi's wishes. It wasn't long after Richard's visit that another suitor appeared at Kachi's doorstep. Benjamin was from Lilyfield, a bustling town known for its traders and fine markets. He was a merchant himself, tall, dark, and handsome, with a quick smile and a silver tongue that had sold everything from spices to silks. Dressed in a crisp white shirt and black trousers, Benjamin arrived at Kachi's shop, carrying a small box wrapped neatly with a golden ribbon. He tapped lightly on the door. "Come in," Kachi called out. Benjamin stepped inside, his presence commanding attention. "Good afternoon, beautiful tailor of Nemedtown," he said with a slight bow, grinning. Kachi laughed, amused. "Good afternoon, sir. How may I help you?" Benjamin set the box on the counter and opened it carefully. Inside was a stunning necklace made of delicate pearls. "For you," he said. "Because beauty should be adorned with beauty." Kachi looked at the necklace but didn't touch it. "You are very kind," she said politely. "But gifts do not open my heart." Benjamin chuckled. "Ah, but I have not come with only gifts. I have come with a proposal." Kachi tilted her head, her brown eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Go on." "I am a merchant, Kachi," Benjamin said proudly. "I have ships that cross rivers and horses that ride into markets. With me, You will never lack anything. Marry me, and I will make you the queen of my world." Kachi sighed, though she still smiled. "Benjamin, I am grateful for your offer," she said softly, "but my heart is tied to a dream, a life far away from here. I wish to marry a man who lives abroad." Benjamin blinked in surprise. "Abroad? But why? Everything you could want is right here." "Not everything," Kachi replied. "There are dreams I must chase, places I must see. My heart beats for more than Namedtown and Lilyfield." Benjamin closed the box slowly. "At least, keep the necklace," he said, a little wounded. "No," Kachi said gently. "I cannot accept what I have not earned." He nodded sadly, bowed again, and left the shop, the little box clutched tightly in his hand. Later that evening, Benjamin's younger brother, Luke, and his cousin, Victoria, came visiting. They brought fresh baked bread and jars of honey, hoping to soften Kachi's heart. "Kachi," Luke said earnestly as they sat on the porch, "Benjamin is heartbroken. You are all he talks about." Victoria added, "You would live like a princess, truly. He is kind, hard-working, and will give you the life most women can only dream of." Kachi smiled, her heart touched by their sincerity. "I believe he would," she said gently. "But you must understand, my dream is different. I seek a life across oceans." Victoria sighed, exchanging a sad glance with Luke. "You are firm in your heart," Luke said with respect. "I must be," Kachi replied. And so, with heavy hearts but full understanding, they left her be. Days passed after Benjamin left, and soon the whispers in Namedtown began. Everyone had heard about Kachi's refusals. First Richard, then Benjamin, and tongues wagged like dry leaves in the wind. One evening, Kachi's closest friends, Lillian, Gloria, and Faith, visited her at her cozy home. They came bearing coconut sweets and bottles of orange soda. Kachi welcomed them warmly, laughing and chatting like old times. But soon, the real purpose of their visit surfaced. "Kachi," Lillian said cautiously as they sat cross-legged on the veranda, "we need to talk." Kachi raised an eyebrow, still smiling. "Talk? About what?" "About you," Gloria said, popping a coconut sweet into her mouth. "And all these good men you're turning away." Faith leaned in. "We understand your dreams, Kachi. We do. But, is it not better to marry a good man here than to wait forever for a man abroad you haven't even seen?" "Exactly," Gloria agreed. "Look at Richard. Hard-working. Benjamin. Wealthy. What more could you want?" Kachi sipped her soda calmly before replying. "My dreams are not only about marrying a man," she said softly. "They are about a life, experiences, places I must see." "But love is rare, Kachi," Faith said, almost pleading. "You can't just dismiss it because of a dream." "I know," Kachi said, her voice steady. "But if I marry someone while my heart yearns for somewhere else, will that be fair to him? Or to me?" Her friends fell silent, understanding her heart, even though they wished she would think differently. Later that same week, Kachi's mother, Mrs. Evelyn, also sat her down after dinner. "My daughter," she began gently, stroking Kachi's hair, "marriage is like a garden. It flourishes where you water it. Not necessarily across seas." "I know, Mama," Kachi said, resting her head on her mother's lap. "You are beautiful, gifted, and wise. Suitors will not wait forever. Please, consider. I will, Mama, Kachi promised with a sad smile. But deep inside, she knew she would not change her mind. On a bright Tuesday morning, as the birds sang and the market bustled, Charles came to Namedtown. Charles hailed from Rosewood, a small but rich town famous for its scholars and poets. He was a young lawyer, known for his sharp mind, polished shoes, and ever-present leather briefcase. Dressed in a neatly pressed grey suit and a burgundy tie, Charles was the picture of elegance when he strolled into Kachi's shop. Kachi looked up from the green satin dress she was stitching and smiled warmly. "Good morning," she greeted. "Good morning, Miss Kachi," Charles said, tipping his head respectfully. Kachi noticed how confident he looked, not boastful, but sure of himself. "How may I help you today?" she asked. Charles smiled slightly. "I hope you can help me with more than a suit, Miss Kachi. I hope you can help me with my heart." Kachi laughed softly. "Everyone seems to be losing hearts around here." Charles chuckled. "Well, some losses are worthwhile." He stepped closer and placed a hand over his heart dramatically. "I am here to ask for your hand in marriage. I have admired you from afar. Your beauty, your strength, your talent. Marry me, Kachi, and together we will build a life of intellect, beauty, and partnership." Kachi listened patiently, appreciating his sincerity. "You speak beautifully, Charles," she said, "and you seem like a good man." "I am," he said seriously. "And I would do anything to make you happy." Kachi sighed. "But my happiness lies elsewhere," she said softly. Charles frowned slightly. "Elsewhere? I wish to marry someone who lives abroad," Kachi explained. "My dream is bigger than this town." Charles was silent for a moment, disappointment clouding his intelligent eyes. "I could take you abroad someday," he offered. Kachi shook her head gently. "I want someone who is already there." Charles smiled sadly. "It seems you know exactly what you want." "I do," Kachi said quietly. With a polite nod, Charles took his leave. Later that day, Charles's two elder sisters, Dorothy and Jane, arrived at Kachi's doorstep. Dorothy carried a beautiful basket of books and ribbons. Jane brought handmade soaps and perfumes. "Kachi," Dorothy said. Sitting at the edge of Kachi's couch, Charles is heartbroken. "We rarely see him interested in anyone, until you." Jane added, "He has big dreams too, you know. With him, you can still travel the world." Kachi smiled warmly. She could feel their genuine affection. "I am touched," she said honestly. "But I have a different calling, a different kind of future I seek." Dorothy's face fell. Jane sighed deeply. "You're stubborn, but you are honest," Jane said finally. "And we respect that." They hugged Kachi before they left, though a shadow of sadness lingered on their faces. Not many days had passed when the fourth suitor came seeking Kachi's hand. His name was Daniel. Daniel was from Sunnytown, a vibrant place famous for its grand farms and bright carnivals. He was a farmer's son who had expanded the family's fields into a flourishing food business. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sandy brown hair and a boyish smile, Daniel radiated simple strength and an easygoing spirit. One cool afternoon, Daniel walked into Kachi's shop with a basket full of fresh fruits, bananas, oranges, apples, and guavas, and placed it on her table. "Kachi," he said, smiling warmly, You are sweeter than any fruit in this basket." Kachi laughed. Daniel had a charm about him. Not polished like Charles, nor dramatic like Benjamin, but pure and down to earth. "Thank you, Daniel," she said, admiring the colorful basket. "I've heard about your beauty," Daniel said, leaning on the counter, "but no one told me about your laughter. It's even finer." Kachi smiled, threading her needle calmly. "And I've heard you have the best fruits in Sunnytown," she said playfully. "True," Daniel laughed, "and I want to offer you more than fruits." He straightened up, his expression becoming serious. "I want you to be my wife, Kachi. Together, we'll build a life full of joy, laughter, and plenty. You'll never lack." Kachi's heart warmed at his sincerity. Daniel seemed so genuine, so honest. But her answer remained the same. "Daniel, you are wonderful," she said kindly. "But I seek a different life, with someone abroad." Daniel looked disappointed but not angry. "So, no chance at all?" he asked gently. Kachi shook her head. "I respect your dream," Daniel said quietly. "Even if it hurts a little." He left the shop, whistling a soft, sad tune. That night, Daniel's parents, Mr. Anthony and Mrs. Patricia, came to visit Kachi's home. Mr. Anthony, a tall man with a white beard, and Mrs. Patricia, a short, round woman with the kindest eyes, both looked serious. "Kachi, dear Mrs. Patricia began, her voice like warm honey, "Daniel has chosen you from all the maidens in Sunnytown." "Yes, Mr. Anthony agreed, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "Our home will be yours. Our land, yours. You will have a family who adores you." Kachi felt a lump in her throat. She respected them greatly and knew they spoke with love. But still, she shook her head. "I am grateful," she said softly. "But my dream leads me far away from here." Mrs. Patricia wiped her eyes quickly, while Mr. Anthony sighed. "You are a rare kind, Kachi," Mr. Anthony said, "and rare kinds must follow their own paths." They left her with blessings instead of curses, and Kachi cried a little that night. Daniel, sweet, hearty Daniel, became the fourth suitor Kachi refused. Kachi's heart was strong, but loneliness started knocking sometimes, especially when she saw how much the families loved and wanted her. Still, she stood firm. The sun was high and hot the day Edward arrived in Nemedtown. Edward was from Brookstone, a bustling city where dreams were forged in ambition and competition. He was a businessman, young, daring, and very proud. He wore sharp suits, gold cufflinks, and expensive cologne that you could smell before he even entered the room. When Edward marched into Kachi's shop, people actually stopped and stared outside. He was handsome, no doubt, with dark hair slicked back and sharp blue-gray eyes that sparkled with mischief and pride. Kachi looked up from her sewing machine and smiled politely. "Good afternoon," she said. Edward didn't waste time. "I know you," he said, adjusting his gold watch dramatically. "Everyone talks about Kachi, the beautiful tailor of Nemedtown." Kachi chuckled lightly. "I hope they say good things." "Only the best," Edward said, flashing a perfect smile. "And I believe the best deserves the best." Kachi raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and you believe you are the best?" "Without a doubt," Edward said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. She laughed softly, amused but not charmed. "And why have you come, Mr. Edward. He grinned. I've come to claim my queen. Kachi leaned back, folding her arms, intrigued. Claim, she repeated, as if I'm a prize on a shelf. Edward laughed, realizing his mistake. No offense. I mean, I want you to be my wife. Travel the world with me. Fly first class. Wear diamonds. He spread his arms like a magician offering treasure. Kachi tilted her head thoughtfully. And what about love? Edward shrugged. Love grows when you live well. Kachi smiled politely and shook her head. I'm sorry, Edward. I admire your confidence. But I seek more than luxury. I seek a connection. A man abroad whose heart matches mine. Edward frowned slightly, unused to being turned down. You'll regret it, he said, half teasing, half serious. Women fight over me in Brookstone. Kachi laughed, truly laughed. Then perhaps you should go back quickly before someone steals you, she said, her eyes twinkling. Edward, defeated but not entirely humbled, adjusted his jacket. Well, Kachi, he said with a wink, someday you'll hear my name on the news, and you'll remember. And with that, he strutted out as dramatically as he entered. The whole town now buzzed about Kachi's stubbornness. Some admired her, some pitied her, some said she was proud. But Kachi knew, her heart was waiting for something special. Whispers in Nemedtown. By now, the whole of Nemedtown buzzed like a restless beehive. Every market woman, every village elder, every gossipy tailor or carpenter had the same question on their lips. What exactly does Kachi want? Some shook their heads and said, maybe her standards are too high. Others whispered behind hands, maybe she has a spirit husband. That's why no earthly man is good enough for her. It was not uncommon in Nemedtown for people to believe in spirit marriages. Ancient tales said that some people were mysteriously bound to invisible lovers in the spirit world. And Kachi's continued rejections only fueled those rumors. At church, old women stared at her sideways. At the market, young girls giggled and pointed when she walked by. Even the town criers joked in their songs about Kachi the Untouchable. At home, Kachi's mother, Mrs. Grace, worried herself almost sick. Mrs. Grace was a gentle, kind-hearted woman with laugh lines etched around her eyes and a scarf always tied around her head. Sitting in the backyard one evening, plucking bitter leaf, she sighed heavily. My daughter, she said, as Kachi joined her to help. When will you settle down, eh? Is marriage now a battle to win? Don't you see how people talk? Kachi lowered her head, her heart heavy with love for her mother. Mama, she said softly, I want more than what they offer. I want someone who matches my dreams. Mrs. Grace wiped her hands on her wrapper and looked deeply into her daughter's eyes. Dreams are good, Kachi. But remember, time waits for no woman. A flower that blooms too long may never be plucked. Kachi nodded silently. Her heart ached. She didn't want to cause her mother worry. She didn't want to be alone either. But she knew deep inside, she would not marry for pity, fear, or pressure. She would wait. The town gossiped. Her mother worried. Kachi stayed calm. Just when the whispers in Nemedtown grew louder, just when people had almost given up hope on Kachi, good news came from a neighboring town called Mapleton. The Adams family, a respected and well-known household in Mapleton, had heard about the beautiful tailor who dreamed of an abroad husband. They had a son, Nathan Adams. who had been living in London for 6 years, working as an engineer. Mr. and Mrs. Adams believed Karchi would be the perfect wife for Nathan. One bright Sunday afternoon, the Adams family, parents and 2 of Nathan's younger sisters, dressed in their finest clothes and traveled to Namedtown. When they arrived at Karchi's home, they brought baskets of fruits, a crate of wine, and a brand new wrapper for Mrs. Grace. They came with songs, laughter, and good intentions. Mrs. Grace welcomed them warmly, her heart pounding with hope. Mr. Adams spoke proudly. "We have heard about your daughter, Karchi. Her beauty, her skills, her good character. We come today not to joke, but to ask formally, would she be willing to marry our son, Nathan, who lives and works abroad?" Karchi's heart raced. Abroad husband, engineer, London. It was everything she had dreamed of. She smiled shyly and said softly, "I would be honored to meet Nathan." The Adams family laughed joyfully. "No need to wait," said Mrs. Adams. "He sent his pictures and videos, see." They showed Karchi handsome photographs of Nathan in his sleek suits, standing in front of tall glass buildings in London. Nathan even recorded a sweet video message. "Hello, Karchi. I have heard about you and I am eager to meet you. I hope you will accept me." Karchi blushed deeply, hiding her face behind her scarf. She accepted. Plans moved quickly. Within a few months, there was a grand traditional marriage ceremony. People came from Namedtown, Mapleton, and beyond. The drummers beat hard, the dancers swirled in colorful wrappers, and the smell of fried meat filled the air. Karchi wore a magnificent coral necklace and a sparkling blue and silver dress she sewed herself. She looked like a queen. Nathan could not attend the wedding physically. He was handling urgent immigration papers, but he sent expensive gifts, rings, and video calls. Everyone rejoiced. Karchi had finally found her abroad husband. The town buzzed with excitement and a little jealousy. Finally, people said, "Karchi's dream has come true." After the celebration, it was agreed that Karchi would stay with the Adams family until Nathan returned from London in a few months. She moved into the beautiful bungalow in Mapleton. At first, life was sweet. Mrs. Adams treated her like a daughter. Mr. Adams bragged about her sewing skills to everyone. The 2 younger sisters, Martha and Caroline, took her to the market, the salon, even to church. Karchi woke every morning, cooking breakfast, cleaning, smiling politely. She counted the days, excited for her husband's arrival. Every evening, she sat by the window, sewing gowns for her future life abroad, daydreaming about airports, snow, and busy city streets. But as the weeks turned into months, something began to feel wrong. Nathan did not return. His calls became less frequent. Sometimes days passed without a word. Karchi started to worry, but each time she voiced her fears, Mrs. Adams would smile and say, "Patience, my dear. Immigration is not easy. Nathan is doing everything to bring you over." Karchi nodded, clinging to hope. After all, she had waited so long for an abroad husband. She could wait a little more. Unbeknownst to Karchi, Nathan Adams had died many years ago in a car accident in London. The Adams family, desperate to protect their name and legacy, kept it a deep, dark secret from everyone. Even the townspeople of Mapleton believed Nathan was still alive overseas. They saw Karchi, beautiful and skilled, as the perfect vessel to continue Nathan's bloodline, even though he was long gone. Their plan was simple but wicked: make her bear a child in Nathan's name, and no one would ever know the truth. To keep Kachi content, everything she wanted was provided. A brand new red car parked in the compound. Designer dresses and shoes from expensive boutiques. Gold jewelry that glittered against her fair skin. An endless stream of money for her tailoring business. Mrs. Adams treated her like a precious diamond, always smiling, always fussing over her, always asking about her health. At first, Kachi thought she had finally found happiness. She wore beautiful clothes, drove around town, and became the envy of every young woman in Medtown and Mapleton. But behind the smiles of her new family lay a dangerous obsession. Mrs. Adams had a chilling daily routine. She monitored Kachi closely, noting the days she menstruated, the days she ovulated, the slightest changes in her mood. Whenever Kachi's fertile period approached, Mrs. Adams would secretly drug her food or drink, causing Kachi to slip into a deep, helpless sleep. Then, while Kachi lay unconscious, something truly horrific happened. Mr. Adams, the man she called Papa, would enter her room and force himself upon her, all under the evil plan of getting her pregnant, so they could claim it as Nathan's child. Each time, Kachi woke up feeling dizzy, sore, and confused, but Mrs. Adams always smiled sweetly and said, "Maybe you are just tired, my dear. Rest more. Nathan will be home soon." One fateful morning, Kachi woke up feeling very strange. Her head spun, her body ached. She rushed to the bathroom, vomiting violently. Mrs. Adams, feigning concern, rushed her to the best hospital in Mapleton. After a series of tests, the doctor, a kind-looking man with glasses, came into the consultation room smiling broadly. "Congratulations, Mrs. Adams," he said. "You are about 6 weeks pregnant." Kachi sat frozen. Pregnant. She could barely think. Tears sprang to her eyes, not from sadness, but from confusion. Nathan had never come home. How could she be pregnant? The Adams family reacted immediately. Mrs. Adams jumped up, clapping her hands and shouting, "Glory be to God! Our daughter-in-law has conceived. Nathan will be so happy when he hears the news." They made calls. They ordered food. They threw a party that very evening to celebrate. Kachi sat quietly among the noise, her heart pounding. Something didn't feel right. Something dark hovered around her like a heavy cloud. She decided that night, after the party, she must find out the truth. Whatever it cost. Even though Kachi sat with the pregnancy report trembling in her hands, no one, not even the doctor or the Adams family, asked who was responsible. It was as if they already knew. As if it didn't matter. Mrs. Adams hugged her tightly, whispering, "You must not think of abortion, my daughter. Nathan's blood must live on. You must keep this child. You must give our son a future." Kachi's head spun. Nathan. But Nathan wasn't here. How could he father a child he had never touched? Confused, helpless, trapped, Kachi was forced to go along with it. Day after day, she carried the pregnancy, her heart heavy with sadness and unanswered questions. Months later, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, after a long and painful labor, Kachi gave birth to a set of twins, 2 healthy baby boys. They cried loudly into the world as if announcing their arrival with defiance. The Addams family went into wild celebration. Mr. Addams danced around the hospital ward, shouting praises. Mrs. Addams fell on her knees, weeping with joy. Martha and Caroline brought large baskets of gifts. Even church members were called to come and rejoice. The family named the twins Nathan Jr. and Nathaniel, tying them permanently to their late brother's name. No one, not a single soul from the family, asked how it was possible. Whispers in the wind, but outside the Addams household, people were talking. In the market, at the water well, in small gatherings, you could hear the whispers. How is it possible she got pregnant without seeing her husband? They said the husband is abroad, but how can a woman conceive through a phone call? Something is fishy. This marriage is not ordinary. Some villagers even joked bitterly. Maybe she is married to a ghost. Others, more serious, started to fear that something spiritual was happening. They whispered about spirit husbands, witchcraft, and evil covenants. Kachi heard these whispers whenever she went outside. Her heart sank deeper every time. She felt trapped between two worlds. The world that celebrated her as a blessed wife and mother, and the world that secretly pitied her and questioned her soul. At night, when the twins slept beside her, Kachi would lie awake staring at the ceiling. Tears rolled down her cheeks silently. She loved her babies, how could she not? They were innocent, beautiful, part of her, but inside, her heart was broken. She was a mother now, but not by choice, and not by love. The heavy chains of a terrible secret tightened around her soul each day. And somewhere deep inside, a flame of determination began to burn. I must find out the truth. I must break free. Kachi knew she had to be careful. The Addams family watched her every move. Mrs. Addams, especially, was always around, offering help, checking on the babies, suggesting she should rest, but Kachi could see through the smiles now. She decided to pretend to be happy, pretend to trust them, pretend to be the perfect daughter-in-law. Meanwhile, quietly, she began to dig. One afternoon, while pretending to clean Mr. Addams' study, Kachi stumbled upon an old dusty album hidden inside a locked drawer, the key carelessly left behind. Her hands shook as she opened it. There, in the yellowed pages, were pictures of Nathan. Handsome, smiling, full of life. But at the back of the album, she saw something that made her heart stop. A funeral program. It read, "In loving memory of Nathan Addams. Born 1992, died 2017. Gone but not forgotten." Her breath caught. Tears filled her eyes. Nathan was dead. Dead for years before she ever married into the family. Kachi couldn't hide it anymore. That evening, while the family sat eating yam porridge, she stood up trembling but firm. She placed the funeral program on the dining table. Mr. Addams dropped his spoon. Mrs. Addams froze. "You lied to me," Kachi said, her voice shaking with anger. "Nathan is dead. He has been dead for years. Who made me pregnant? Who?" There was a long, suffocating silence. Mrs. Addams stood up slowly, her eyes dark and empty. "You are carrying Nathan's legacy. That is all that matters," she said coldly. Mr. Addams looked away, guilt and shame written all over his face. Kachi realized she was not just living among liars. She was living among monsters. She decided that night that she would leave, no matter what it cost. She had to save herself and her twin boys. But the Addams family, sensing her intentions, grew more dangerous. They locked the compound gates at night. They installed stronger security. They even suggested that she should stop visiting the market, that someone would do her shopping. They wanted to trap her forever. One night, while crying alone in her room, Kachi's phone buzzed. It was a strange number. She picked it up, and a soft voice spoke. "Kachi, I know the truth. I can help you. Meet me tomorrow at St. Joseph's Church at noon. Come alone." Her heart pounded. Was it a trap, or was it her only chance? Either way, she knew she couldn't stay in that house any longer. The flame of courage inside her blazed stronger than ever. Tomorrow, she would fight for her freedom. The next morning, Kachi woke early. The house was quiet, only the twins' soft breathing filled the air. Her heart raced as she packed a small bag. Baby clothes. A little cash she had hidden. A photo of the twins. She wrapped the twins in warm shawls and tied them securely to her back, the way village women carried their babies. Quietly, she tiptoed out of the room. Down the hallway. Past the kitchen. Out through the back door. Miraculously, the small wooden gate near the kitchen was unlocked. "God, help me," she whispered, slipping into the morning mist. St. Joseph's Church stood at the edge of town, empty and silent. Kachi entered the church, clutching her babies close. Sitting alone at the far pew was a tall, slim woman in a black dress. As soon as the woman saw her, she stood up and waved. Kachi hesitated, then moved closer. The woman's face was kind, yet there was deep sadness in her eyes. She introduced herself. "My name is Sarah. I was Nathan's fiancée." Kachi gasped. Sarah continued. "Nathan and I were to be married. But before we could, he died. Your so-called husband has been dead for 7 years, Kachi." Tears welled up in Kachi's eyes. Sarah's voice shook with emotion. "The Addams family, they are desperate. They wanted an heir. When Nathan died, it broke them. They made a terrible plan. And you were their victim." Kachi felt like the ground beneath her feet had disappeared. Sarah took a deep breath and said, "The father of your twins is not Nathan. It's Mr. Addams, your father-in-law." The words struck Kachi like thunder. She stumbled backward, clutching her babies, her whole body trembling. Sarah quickly held her. "Listen, Kachi, you must be strong. I have friends. We can protect you. But you must leave with me now." Kachi nodded through her tears. Everything made sense now. The constant monitoring. The drugged drinks. The forced stay in the house. They had never loved her. They only needed her womb. Sarah had arranged everything. Waiting outside was a battered old pickup truck driven by 2 men from a women's rights organization in a nearby city. Without wasting time, Kachi and Sarah bundled into the truck. The driver started the engine and drove fast, leaving the cursed town and the Addams evil behind. Kachi looked back once as the town disappeared into the distance. She whispered, "I will survive. For me. For my sons." Kachi lived the rest of her days in deep regret, always whispering to herself, "Had I known. Had I known." Each time she walked through the streets, men who once begged for her love now mocked her openly, laughing and shaking their heads. She became a shadow of the beautiful, proud tailor she once was, her heart broken, her dreams scattered. No matter how hard she tried, Kachi never found true love again. Kachi's story became a warning and a living proverb in many homes. Mothers would point at her and tell their daughters, "Do not be like Kachi, who rejected good men while chasing shadows." Another mother would warn her daughters saying, "Remember Kachi, beauty without wisdom bring tears." Answer: the name Kachi became more than just a name. It became a lesson, one written in tears, regret, and lost dreams. Moral lessons. Choosing dreams over reality can turn a bright future into endless regret. Value good hearts over distant promises. He who abandons gold at his feet for the silver in the clouds may end up with nothing at all. The end. Thank you for watching. Please like and share your opinion on the comment section. Please remember to subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories. God bless you abundantly. Bye bye.